Welcome to episode 7 of Breakfast Talk. Today's topic is getting back into the creative mood. There's a quote by Stephen King that says, "Amateurs sit and wait for inspiration. The rest of us just get up and go to work." We dive into basically that quote, but we don't reference it, and so referencing it now. If you're listening in a car or just sitting around at work on break, whatever. Uh, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review or whatever you think this deserves. And yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, then there's a quote that's chilling on the screen right now, and you're listening to my voice. So let's get into episode 7.
Wakey, wakey, smell those eggs and bacon. It's time for Breakfast Talk, a podcast covering a range of entrepreneurial and independent comics creation topics first thing in the morning. Of course, please like and share if you're enjoying our special seasoning. And be sure to subscribe to join us every Monday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. Let's talk.
We're back on episode 7 of Breakfast Talk.
Breakfast talk!
Breakfast
talk! Like Dark Green Duck style.
God. I'm Greg with Cernova Comics, writer, creator of our universe, the entire universe, and whoever
Nothing
wants
but
to
the
go.
universe.
And then each one of those people, whoever wants to go next, they can.
I'm Dillon of Cernova Comics, and I am CTO and editor-in-chief.
What up? I'm Hilo Hector from New Leaf Studios. I am the art director, lead artist, general business dude.
What's your
Overall,
tweet on general?
New Leaf
overall
Studios.
director.
Yes, exactly. I do a lot, many hats. I'm the baker and the businessman.
Oh,
That's like a reference to that other one we did the other day.
yeah.
It's almost like I did that on purpose.
Oh, click to go watch that.
Yeah. Greg, that's where you got to put the card in. Put the little.
Exactly.
You can't do
info
polls
card.
on YouTube anymore, which
Click the
kind of
link.
suck because that's the one thing I always did on our videos, just like polls. Nobody did them, but
maybe they banned you like they did from Facebook.
they're like,
You're not allowed
oh,
to use polls anymore. You're making them look bad.
they're like, oh, polls are going away June like 13th. So I'm like, oh, okay. So today's episode topic is getting back into the creative mood because sometimes you just get out of the funk. So this is how you
True.
get back into
Exactly.
it.
Exactly. Happens to all of us, fellas. It happens to us all.
So yeah,
Except Dwight.
I actually I actually wasn't really into a creative mood like the beginning of this year, even though like I wanted to do a bunch of shit in the beginning of the year. It was like getting over the holiday season, and then I was like, I just don't want to write or do anything. So
This sounds like a
More of
horror story.
A Stephen King horror story.
Oh.
Yeah, I think I definitely fluctuate. Like I have like periods in time where I'm like super creative and like I literally go to sleep thinking about artwork and wake up thinking about what I want to do with my like day, artwork wise. And then some days I'm just like, I don't even want to go sit behind my desk. I don't want to pick up a pencil. And like, it's like, there's been a huge debate whether or not like artist block is real. And I think that it's just one of those things that's like people just have labeled it something, and now you're trying to argue over a label, and it's like it just is what it is. It doesn't have to be called anything. It could just be like I just don't feel like doing it today. It doesn't need to be called artist block, but I think it's definitely real, like in the sense of some days you just don't have that like. Some days it's just a little easier. Those pathways just open up a little easier. You don't have to try as hard, and other days you do, and that's just part of it, you know. I typically recommend when you get into like a creative lull that you acknowledge it, you take some time away from it, and then
Watch Breakfast Talk.
you watch Breakfast Talk, and then you eat breakfast because that's going to help. Um, and then you just like you read something, do something that's kind of like gets your brain kind of moving in a direction, in any direction really. And then it's kind of like what happened for me a lot when I was working a job is like I would be doing something, and while I'm doing something, I'm generating ideas. And I know this happens to you at work, Greg. And it's like that was like the best time because my mind wasn't focused on creating artwork. It was focused on something else, and like in the background, my creative brain was like, able to like start moving.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to recreate now. I'll just go and like walk around, or like I said, read something, or just read an article, just do something that's different and not focused on. You can read that book right there. That's not focused on like my artwork specifically. But another recommendation for artists specifically, and just anybody who's in a block, make sure you hydrate and you drink a lot of water. For some reason, for me, that helps out a lot. And I've heard that it's about neuroconnectivity. So if you keep yourself hydrated, there's just better connectivity in your brain. Now it would be cool if it just appeared behind you. Without your arm, no arm. It's like the wires from like movie sets.
Pinocchio?
Yeah,
The Matrix? Pulling.
all of them, all the wires and all of cinema.
Yeah, basically, just like Hector was talking about, this book right here is a great book to kind of put words and labels onto something, because sometimes labels are bad and sometimes labels are good, because if you understand the enemy, you can fight the enemy, right? So it's one of the things it talks about in Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art, is just the concept of fighting. So the book's broken into 3 parts, and the first part is called The Resistance. And the whole point is that no matter who you are, if you are an artist, and he defines artist as musician, painter, writer, even entrepreneur, right? Anyone who has to do something creative, the moment that they need to do that creative work, suddenly the resistance comes up and it fights and it makes sure that you don't ever get that work done. And the point is that you need to understand that that will always happen, and you can't let that stop you. Too many people sit idle and wait for the muse to appear, but little do they know the muse is actually waiting for you to sit down and start working before it decides to appear. And that's one of the biggest things about what he calls turning pro, which is that you don't sit back and expect to slowly draw your artwork over time. And if that's the case, it's a hobby. You're not an artist, because an artist gets paid for their work, or an artist at least makes sure that people are being, you're getting your work out there. You're not just, sitting on it because it's a hobby like knitting, right?
No, that was probably the hardest part of becoming a professional for me, was just there was a lot of, when I first started, there was a lot of time where I was like, again, sitting and waiting, right? Like I was like, I guess I haven't really been so deep into that. Like I always usually kind of tried to pick myself up. Even when I was in block, I would just pick up my pencil and do life drawing or something that wasn't related to what I was trying to work on. So I was always trying to do something different, but there was a lot of resistance time for sure, where it was just like, I know I have to do this one thing. Like I have to ink this page. And then there would be like 12 other little creative things that would come up while I'm trying to ink the page. And I'm like, I want to do that. I want to do that. But when you're a pro, you have to, it's a job. You have to complete it. You have to see it through all the way. You can't just take breaks and keep distracting yourself, because nothing's going to get done. So when you become a pro, it's definitely more about the process. Like you just keep doing the process over and over, and that can get tedious just like anything else. But I would rather have small moments of tedious time doing what I love than most of my day is tedious stuff. And then I get home and I have to do, or I get to do my art at that point. So it's definitely a good trade-off.
Yeah. We had Josh Saxon on our 3rd episode of our SNC podcast, and click to watch that.
Getting good at
somewhere.
that. He was saying that he just really wants to just put out his book Milky, and the last one is actually coming on Kickstarter like around the same time ours is, which
Great looking book. Great looking book, by the way.
And I'm finally gonna back it because I was like, I'm getting all of your issues. Like, I'm finally gonna get it. I think I backed the last one, but like, I'm definitely gonna get the fourth one. And he just wants to have it on the shelf so when he has a kid one day, he'll have a legacy to like have something be like, oh look,
Pops
Dad,
did this.
yeah, look, Dad, you did something. You're not a total piece of shit. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
all you pieces of shit out there. Take note.
You got to make a comic book. If you don't, you're a piece of shit. No.
You ain't cool unless you pee your pants.
And peeing your pants is cool.
I'm Miles Davis.
Oh, that's the grossest thing I've ever heard. Get on the bus.
Let's go.
Exactly.
Who would eat 30 bags of lunches? Yeah, now I'm going to just quote.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Veronica Vaughn. So
That damn
hot.
Sasquatch, that's it.
Yeah.
See, look at the creative mood. That's why you got to watch Breakfast Talk.
Exactly.
We just inspired you guys. You're
We
welcome.
just inspired you to watch Billy Madison. Yeah, so like the beginning of the year, I didn't really do anything, and then I started to like, oh, I should probably write this comic, but I needed inspiration, so I started watching Dexter again. I rewatched Dexter because the comic I'm writing is a serial killer comic, so I was like, oh, how does a serial killer think? And
Right.
Not only Dexter, I had to watch. I didn't have to. I watched Investigation Discovery. There's some messed up people. And I just watched John Wayne Gacy last week at work because this guy I work with, he's like, oh, yeah, you never watched anything with that guy? I'm like, no, I don't know really anything about that guy. He's like, oh, he lives in Chicago. I'm like, oh, I always wanted to visit Chicago. And he's like, probably not now.
He's been dead.
Yeah, he's dead. He's dead. But, yeah, that guy's messed up, too.
Yeah.
I was going to say, actually, I keep a sticky note on my TV, which I forgot about, which is probably not good. I should probably move it. And you probably can't read this too well.
Oh, I can.
Yeah.
Good.
Too much caffeine. I like that.
So this right here, this was from a video with Tim Ferriss, who is like every entrepreneur's like ideal person, or every he's basically somebody who's recorded everything he's ever done in his life, and because of that he can evaluate how what he's done has worked.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's got like something like, I think he might have just turned 40, or he's like late 30s, early 40s, something like that. And he has recorded like every workout since he was 18, something like that. And I think maybe once a year he skips like a week or two of recording. But other than that, he records all the other ones. And the point is that he's very good at understanding how he works and learning how people work. And so there's a video that talked about when he loses focus, how to retain that focus. So this is the same thing like Hector was saying. You got all these things running through your head, but you're supposed to be drawing those lines right now. Where's the inking? So if you're trying to stay focused, the 3 questions he always asks himself, the first one is he eating enough? And I know that happens with me. Like I'll get in the zone, I'm working really hard, and then suddenly I can't focus. I'm losing, I'm trying, I'm struggling, and it turns out I should have just stopped and ate an apple, an hour and a half ago. And I would have been perfectly fine to continue trucking along. So even though you might be in the zone, it's very beneficial to take those 10-minute breaks every now and then, because if you don't, you'll burn out, as opposed to being able to go an extra 6 hours just by having these little breaks.
Yep.
And then the next one, like Hector was just reading off, is, am I consuming too much caffeine? So not are you tired, but are you unfocused and energized? Because maybe you've had 8 cups of coffee or 9 cups of coffee. Whatever floats your boat. And so the point is that, are you over caffeinating yourself? And to watch out for that. And that one's kind of hard to undo once you've done it. But the point is that if you notice like, oh, when I hit the 4th cup of coffee, I lose focus during the day, figure out how to reduce that. Maybe drink decaf so you get the placebo effect without the actual caffeine side effects.
Right.
And then the last one is it's not a physical thing you can do. It's a mental trick you can do. And the point is that if you're getting stuck and you don't know what to do, ask yourself, what would this look like if it were easy? And the point is that sometimes just reframing how you look at something can help simplify everything.
Yeah.
So, it could be as simple as, like maybe something I was doing, I have like a drawing pad. I'm not an artist for comic book sake, but I like to draw on a drawing pad. And every once in a while I do something like I'm having trouble drawing something. I'm like, oh, I have a ruler. Why aren't I using a ruler? Like sometimes you really aren't thinking about it because you're so focused on the task that you're not thinking like, how could I make the task easier? Because all you have to do is ask your brain that, and your brain will go, oh, well, here's a couple suggestions. But if you don't ask your brain that, you're not going to stop and actually think that.
Yeah.
So are you focused? If not, ask yourself those 3 questions.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah. And it's a good place to stop.
Breakfast talk!
Just going to let Dillon do that every time.
So that was episode 7 of Breakfast Talk. Like, share, subscribe, hit the
Ring the
bell,
bell.
break the bell.
Wait. Once. Just jab it. That's it.
Just jam it. All right, and we will see you on episode 8.